Shall we start? So we're on. Thank you very much. Congratulations, Tony, on the presentation. We're here to talk about the barriers to next generation transportation. We have a great panel to talk about it. We'll talk about some of the new ideas and new technologies that are being implemented. We saw an example of it today. But mainly we want to talk about the barriers that these new technologies are facing, that transportation is facing, especially at a time when climate change is an important factor, and are we sure that we have found all the answers to what to do about the future of transportation. So I'd like to welcome the panel. I have two people from frontline transport companies, and then two people who are focused on the new tech. I don't want to make it sound like the new transport companies are old tech. They're definitely very clear new tech. So I have next to me Khalid Alhogail. He's the CEO of the Saudi Public Transport Corporation. I'll probably be asking about Riyadh Metro, which we're all interested in as a resident in Riyadh as well. I have Matthew Chason, CEO of Lift Aircraft, Deepak Chugani, CEO of Nuvo Cargo, and Tony Douglas, CEO of Riyadh Air. Thank you, Tony, for naming the airline after me. I really appreciate that. So my intro, I'll start with Khalid. Riyadh Metro is about to launch. I'd like to ask you, what are the challenges that you face to launch Riyadh Metro, which we're told it's a few weeks away?
Yeah. Thank you, Riyadh.
Yeah.
And it's a pleasure to be here, and thanks to the audience joining with us. Riyadh Metro, really, it's a giant project that could be with the part of the King Abdulaziz project for transportation, with the two elements of the metro and the bus to be integrated, has been born giant enough that it is the biggest project, will be done in a very short time compared to the big cities like London, Paris, who took 180 years, or Paris 150 years, until it's been built the network. So imagine Riyadh with 8 million residents in 2,000 kilometers square, that they would shift from the private to the public transport. It's a big challenge, but morely through the execution, it was the pandemic where it slowed down the business. But anyway, as being the government official announcing that it is within weeks, so the matter, we are almost around. The point is how it will shift and influence the lifestyle of the people of Riyadh to enjoy their beautiful city, with this expansion happening every day with a new landmark. So imagine what network it will be, that will be within phases, as well that this metro and the bus as a transportation will be something to push for the Vision 2030 implementation, to have a livable city among the first 100 cities in the world. And that we see the influence where it will shift more than 20% of the crowd away by pushing for the public transport that it should be. Because Riyadh, we know, it's only 1%. Imagine 1% public transport, compare where it is in other countries, goes up to 95.
And your target, you said, is 20%.
Target,
right.
No, it should be within 15%.
15%.
The public transport from 1 to 15 by Vision 2030. But I believe we will be more accelerated to do it, because when we start the first phase and the demand will increase, of course, you have to bring the supply and expand until it increase maybe and exceed the 15%.
Tony,
20%, sorry, is to move from the crowd and the congestion within operating that.
Tony, you're starting an airline from scratch. You're starting an airline in a very busy region when it comes to airlines. You've used to lead another airline in the region. What are some of the challenges that you're facing now? how are you dealing with the fact that you do have a lot of tough competition uh, in the region itself? You said digitally native. I was going to ask you what that exactly means. I got an answer. But also the idea you're implementing a different model, the point-to-point model, rather than the transit model that most of the other airlines are espousing. Can you speak a bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And I think, look, it comes back to we've got an incredible city, an energetic, vibrant, growing city with a population over 8 million. Our connectivity as a G20 country, second fastest economy within the G20, is simply not good enough. So everybody probably here is aware that, you know, we don't fly directly to Tokyo, for example, or Shanghai, or Seoul or Sydney. The list goes on and on. Simply unacceptable. The #1 premium flow on Qatar Airways, business and first, is Saudi nationals. The population, as we all know, of the city of Riyadh is 3.5 times the size of the whole of Qatar. It's just wrong. So the mandate, of course, for Riyadh Air is to get to over 100 international cities by 2030 and give us the direct connectivity so our citizens can connect to the world, and importantly, the world can connect to the kingdom. Simple as that.
So are there any primary priority, let's say, cities that you want to link up with?
So it's a little bit too early to announce the first cities, because obviously you go into summer and winter seasons and things of that nature. But what I will announce, so there's a slight tease for a very, very big reveal in about an hour and a half's time. And that is FII here today will announce a very large aircraft order on top of the one that we made a year ago. So hold that thought, ladies and gentlemen. Hour and a half's time, big aircraft order released here at FII. You heard it first as the moderator.
Let me check my team. You guys heard that? Yes. Okay, they're ready. And in terms of the order that you made last year, there's no delays or anything. We know there's problems at Boeing and all that. You haven't been told of any delays in terms of deliveries.
So we're confident we'll go into flying next year.
Right.
And, you know, the model in the booth just behind us is that incredible livery that you'll see in the skies. Boeing are working tirelessly with us. Have they got challenges? Yes, they have. But we are the national carrier of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and the brand is Riyadh.
So will I fly on my airline, my own airline, mid-2025? We're still mid-2025? That's still the target?
You can have seat 1A, sir.
Thank you very much. In terms of the public transport has been around for a long time, and I'm going to ask Khalid about that. They're implementing a lot of the new technology. Riyadh Air is obviously implementing new technologies to try and make the experience better, something that Deepak is doing with trade. But Matthew, you're completely different idea, right? It's not a big airplane with lots of people in it. It's an individual in a drone, essentially, a very big drone. But right now, is it more than something rich people will play with, or do you see it actually scaling to the point where it's an alternative mode of transportation, maybe within cities?
Yeah. So the challenge that we're trying to address with lift aircraft is, I think, one of the biggest problems in transportation today, and that is the intense congestion and traffic in our urban cores. I'm sure Riyadh has terrible traffic. New York City was just ranked as the worst congestion in the world. Yeah. The average New Yorker spends 100 hours each year stuck in traffic. And speeds in central Manhattan average like 3 miles an hour to 7 miles an hour. So literally you're in your car and you can walk faster. So that's a huge problem. Public transportation is a key solution, I think, in our urban centers. But ultimately, we want to create a solution that helps people go door to door by air. And these aren't massive aircraft to take multiple people at a time, because most trips are just one person going less than 10 miles. So we've developed a single seat aircraft that actually doesn't require a pilot's license to fly. It's just like a big drone. And it can fly you point to point across an urban area like your own private electric helicopter. And we can do it safely, quietly, and much, much faster.
You said safely.
Yes.
As a normal human being, I'd worry, right? If lots of these things are buzzing around.
Yeah.
The noise, the safety, are we going to bump into each other? How do you deal with that issue? People's concern, I mean, the human concern on that front.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, ultimately, we're using new electric technologies, right, modern batteries, flight control systems that are highly redundant. Our aircraft has 18 individual motors, and so you can lose up to 6 of those and still fly controllably. We have a ballistic parachute that deploys autonomously. The aircraft is so easy to fly that we can teach anyone to fly it in less than an hour. So this is an aircraft, it's highly automated, semi-autonomous. You can just plug in where you want to go and it'll take you there, but you also have a joystick on board so you can fly yourself.
Are we going to see that in major airlines? No. Autonomous airplanes? Not really, no?
So I think it's an interesting question.
Yeah.
In terms of, long range, long haul with, 290 people sat in the back. No.
No. Yes.
In terms of vertical lift within congested environments such as New York City and many other congested cities around the world, absolutely yes.
Right.
And it'll probably over a long time be a pathway.
Deepak, you help people ship from one place to another, right? Your job is to make it easier. Your company right now is focused very much on North America, specifically US-Mexico trade. Do you see that model easily scaling regionally in other regions, i.e., for example, the Middle East, since we're here in Saudi Arabia? Is that something you're aiming to do?
Thank you, Riyadh. And also, it's my first time in the kingdom. It's been phenomenal, incredible. For those of you who don't know, Nouveau Cargo, I'm the founder and CEO of Nouveau Cargo. Nouveau Cargo is a logistics and technology business that streamlines and modernizes the process of moving trucks and cargo between the US and Mexico. That's where we started. And as we've had success, we've now scaled into other modes. We should be launching rail next year and deeper into North America with US and Canada transportation. And so the reason that I'm very excited to be here and the conversations I've had with a lot of people locally in the kingdom is I think that when you take a region like US-Mexico, that border, and the complexities you have in streamlining transportation and the movement of trucks, it's very analogous to how things work in other regions that are developing, that are investing heavily in infrastructure. So for those who don't know, the US-Mexico border, the US-Mexico trade is now the largest inter-country trade lane in the world. It's about $1 trillion worth of goods every year. It's about 9 to 10 million truckloads. But it has a lot of complexities at the border. You have to deal with customs. You have to switch trucks. You have a different culture on the Mexican side with drivers using more WhatsApp, documentation. There's a lot of parallels to what I've heard speaking with entrepreneurs and investors in the MENA region and in the kingdom. And I think there's a lot of learnings that can be applied, not only in what we're doing, but other startups in different emerging markets in Africa, deeper in Latin America, that we're excited to explore applying in the region here. We're open to things like white labeling our technology and bringing a lot of change to the region if that can be helpful. But mainly what we've done is a lot of hard-earned work of working with humans and technology and the latest AI tools to really understand how you can take very fragmented, very manual processes for where the shipment is, what documents are needed, what business process needs to be triggered for the next steps so that you have a safe, compliant, and high-quality delivery of your shipments from A to B. And we're lucky to be doing that with some of the biggest North American shippers and global shippers in the world, multi-billion-dollar brands.
How long did it take you to achieve that on the US-Mexican border? And I ask because I'm wondering, it's even more complex here. There you have two governments and they're interested in the trade. in your conversation so far here, have you seen an interest in that?
I've seen an interest. I think there's interest in taking some of the technologies that companies like ours have built and seeing if it can be tropicalized, or if that's the right word in English, basically applied locally here. I think that when you're talking about cross-border, there does need to be either at least a significant volume of trade where you can study the processes of what companies are doing today and build them into the technology, or you need to be able to start with domestic trucking. Something I found remarkably studying companies I've invested in or I've seen all over the world is the dynamics of trucking is very similar in most countries. You have a fragmented base of drivers that creates a certain set of behaviors in how you work with them, how you tender loads to them. And then same thing with doing things like customs clearance. At the end of the day, it's what goods do I have? How do I create digital customs entries? And how do I make sure I'm doing it in a way that's compliant with the laws? And the latest AI tools are good at ingesting all those laws and creating business rules around them. So I think there's many ways it can be done, especially with the boom of the latest technologies that can systematize and create rules for all of the latest, for all of the regulation that might be evolving and changing in real time, right?
Okay. Khalid, in terms of the human part of, in Riyadh, when you're now introducing a public transport meet, which I think everybody agrees is sorely needed in Riyadh, but how are you going to convince Saudis especially, but you know, a lot of people who are used to driving their car, it's a very heavy car culture, number one. Number two, the weather is getting to the station, for example. What do you see the challenge here in convincing Saudis? What is the work you have done in that to encourage, to show that this is a good thing? Because I think in our previous conversation, we agreed that it's different. Riyadh is different, for example, to some of the European cities that I've been in, London or Frankfurt. They have great public transport. You can walk to the station.
Yeah. Thank you. I think this is really a challenge. Everybody thinks about it maybe 5 years ago, but not today. Today, with the congestion we are consuming our time for a trip, 1 hour, for example, 20 minutes. If I have the option today provided to make it within 35 minutes, and I'm a businessman, not only, let me say, a low-income people using this, and they respect my time. I want to go faster. I want to utilize my time. I will jump in that metro. So I don't think people are now waiting. Yes, we are in an environment where is only 1% the public transport, because who would not like to use his car, design his trip, make his route, enjoy the low fuel costs, no fee on parking, no fees on toll, on roads. Everybody would like to enjoy his car. But today, you have to evaluate your time, and that's why with people. That's one part. The other part is also that the people who've been educated abroad, they used to dealing with the public transport. People going in tourism today, they come back with their idea about when shall we have that public transport similar to the level of Paris and London. The good thing to attract those people and convince them moving from private to public, we are building the world class, which means world class, in the type of systems, in the type of vehicles, as a buses, Mercedes and MAN, the latest technology. And by the way, even we're shaping the shape of the city by building 4 big stations as a landmark for Riyadh city. One of them like Khalid, where Zoha Hadid make it. Always this public transport reshape the city, improve the mobility, improve the people even for the health side by giving them the chance to catch up after this metro, jumping to that bus. So I believe people are convinced enough. They are just ready to start. And then you will see how much fast when you see the street get less, this congestion. And don't forget, we face in Riyadh city the most challenging, really. Why? It's 5 years ago or 6 years ago when it was only driving the capacity for the road as infrastructure for men. And then when women start to drive, imagine 1/3 extra cars on the road. So that's not easy. Second, our lifestyle has been changed by creative or generating more trips because the tourism events has been increased. So there was no mass trips through the weekdays for entertainment. Today we have more and more trips. So these challenges, I think it's great for the people of Riyadh that they absorb that challenge after the excavation to make this building of that network, and today they just want to jump in that bus or that one to make their life. So I'm 100% sure, and we will not be surprised when see the demand goes more fast and rapidly, because don't forget, we're building a network, big one, from scratch in a city that big. So as Tony said, Riyadh, which has been created 70 or 30 new ones last 5 years, bringing 48 of the jobs in Saudi, in Riyadh city. All these challenges, not easy. And knowing that 27% of the Saudi people live in Riyadh. So what challenges? I think it is so big, but the solution is there, and we are on it, face after face. We will see Riyadh differently, because part of the attractive for any city is about it's decarbonized, it's no congestion, it is livable. It is all of this make your life enjoyable and easy.
You mentioned infrastructure, and I wanted to ask Tony about that as well. Like you said, the idea is to feed people into Riyadh and to have the Saudi community to travel outside. But there's an expectation, and we're already seeing of a big increase in tourism, big increase in travel, in air travel. What about the infrastructure? What is the challenge that you're facing in terms of the infrastructure, and also the challenge in terms of the challenges of climate change, which in the airline business is a big subject? What is Riyadh Air doing to face those challenges?
So I think, firstly, King Salman International Airport project is a commitment to a global airport that represents best practice, digital connectivity in the same fashion as our brand. Back to the bridge into your question about sustainability, designed with that from the get-go. So another big mega project. It's about airport infrastructure. And there's lots of transitional additions to the existing airport infrastructure to get us to the new airport. In terms of the environment, obviously there is no silver bullet to get into net zero with regular commercial aviation. And we signed with Aramco yesterday, for example, a commitment to work on joint pathways on sustainable aviation fuels. That's going to be a big part of this, but ideas when it comes to commercial aviation sustainability comes in all shapes and sizes. We'll be working with all sorts of different partners, SMEs, specialists throughout the whole of the supply chain to find all of the little things that incrementally reduce the environmental impact of flying. At the end of the day, we will have the most modern fleet, with the most modern engines, with the most innovative fuel provider. So we feel that, back to our brand, we'll be an environmental sustainability thought leader.
Matthew, in terms of the approvals for your aircraft, are you working with governments globally to try and get those approvals, to get it passed so that it can fly?
Yeah, so we actually have already launched commercially in Austin, Texas, our headquarters. We have a fleet of 16 aircraft, and 4 days a week, we're training people and they're flying. You train in an hour and you get to go fly in our vehicle. So it's already approved under FAA rules.
In the US?
In the US.
Right.
Yeah, the US has some pretty unique rules for this ultralight class of aircraft. Not the same in the kingdom, although we worked with NEOM for about 18 months, demonstrating our vehicle, did some flights out there for folks at NEOM.
Are they excited about it?
They're very excited about it. We're excited about NEOM as it is developed. But this region, I think, has some of the world-leading, mobility governments, both here and UAE as well, and Dubai. There's a lot of advanced air mobility happening. So we're in conversations with different regulators. We actually are in an approval process in Japan as well to get the approvals we need to.
Okay. Japan, okay. I can see we're out of time, so I'm really sorry. I would have loved to continue this. But my last question maybe to Khalid, will I ride on Riyadh Metro before the end of this year?
I'm not the official guy. I'm the operator guy. And RCRC, the Royal Commission for Air City, is the one will announce precisely when is it. But we are just, be patient. We've just been waiting. And now we are only a few weeks, inshallah.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you for a great discussion. And over to the next panel.
Thanks.